everyone, welcome to this video. It's Mallory with Black Rifle Homestead, and today, instead of doing a homesteading type of video, I'm actually sharing with you an update about my pregnancy and our baby boy number 3. And so if you want to know what has been going on lately, I have kind of a big update. Then keep watching. Thank you guys so much for your support and comments and everything, and subscribing. If you're not subscribed, then make sure to do that down below. And let's just get into this pregnancy update. All right, so I think the last time I updated you guys about my pregnancy and our baby was at the very end of the second trimester. So I was almost 28 weeks, I think. And so now I am nearing 32 weeks. And so that means I am into the third trimester, like in the first half of the third trimester. So what, 2 months to go about? Yeah, just a couple more months. So we're in the home stretch. I can't believe it. So I'm recording this on October 4th, 2022. And like I said, I'm nearing 32 weeks. So on September 16th, that was a Friday, I had my 28-week ultrasound. Now I was 29 weeks that day, but it was for like the beginning of the third trimester. I am actually getting extra ultrasounds. I'm getting 3 extra ultrasounds with my OB because of my advanced maternal age of 35, almost 36. And that's fine with me. Like, I love getting ultrasounds. I have no problem with them. I know some women are kind of nervous about side effects or whatnot, but I've had quite a few ultrasounds over all of my pregnancies, and nothing bad has happened. So I love ultrasounds. I love being able to see our baby. And so I was like, great, let's do it. So I went in for my ultrasound that day. Mark actually was able to come with me, and the kids, Max and Gus, got to come too. And so that was the first time that the boys, Gus didn't really care because he's only 1, but Max kind of knew what was going on, and that was the first time he had been able to see the baby on ultrasound live. So that was fun. Everything seemed to be fine. She's like, okay, great, like your doctor will call you, or either call you or discuss at your next appointment the results of the ultrasound. I'm like, okay, great, awesome. Everything sounded positive. So we left with no other thought other than, yay, we have more pictures of our baby and he's doing great. So then, let's see. So that following week, I actually got a call from my OB, from her, not like the nurse or anything, from her on the 20th. So that was the following Tuesday. And it was at the very end of the day. I didn't, or like end of the work day, and I didn't hear my phone. And by the time I got the message, the office was already closed. So I was like, okay, I'll just call her back tomorrow. Well, of course, I forget the next day, totally forgot. I had a chiropractor appointment, busy with the kids, with household stuff, whatever. So I just totally forgot. So on the 21st, Wednesday the 21st, we're sitting down to dinner. We had just started eating this like great meal, this steak salad that I had made. And I get a phone call, and it's like 7 or 7:30. And it said healthcare on it. And I was like, oh, weird. Okay, I wonder who this is. And I picked up, and it was my doctor, and I was like, she wanted to discuss the results of my ultrasound with me. I was like, oh, okay, awesome, great. So she starts talking, and she's going through all these things about like how this is looking good and that's looking good, blah, 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 your amniotic fluid. And like, I don't know what it was of how she was talking with me, but I started, when she was telling me all these positive things and everything that was fine, I had this thought like, she's gonna drop some bad news. And again, I don't know what it was. I'm not really sure how. It was just the way she was talking, like trying to, maybe she was just like emphasizing all these good things. And maybe I also kind of deduced like, okay, if she's calling me and she's like going through all these specific things that are fine, then why would she do that if everything was fine? Why wouldn't she just say, everything's fine, everything's great, bye? So maybe it was that. She goes through all the things that are fine, which almost everything is. And then she starts telling me about baby's brain and these things called lateral ventricles. Mark is eating and the kids are being noisy, and so she starts telling me this, and I'm like, okay, I really got to concentrate here. And so I moved into the laundry room and closed the door. Basically, she told me, she said when the sonographer looked at his brain, she saw that the 2 lateral ventricles in the brain are enlarged. One is 10.1 millimeters and the other is 13 millimeters. And she said that the normal size is below 10 millimeters. So she said the one, I'm not sure which, like left or right, I don't know. The one is just barely over the cutoff, and then the other one is 3 millimeters over. Now we're talking in millimeters, so this is really small, but again, like, it also is significant because it's the brain. And so I was like, okay, so what does that mean? You know, so that means that there's cerebral spinal fluid building up in those ventricles, and it's not draining properly for some reason. And she said, we don't have the capacity in our office to see why that's happening. And as she was telling this, I don't know, it's kind of hard to really convey exactly how I felt, but when you get news about your baby that something is wrong, I've never gotten news like that. So it was quite jarring, but at the same time, I really tried to keep my concentration and like, okay, I need to really concentrate on what she's saying because I want to understand. And thankfully, since I'm a registered nurse, these kinds of terms are not totally foreign to me. It's been a while since I've actually studied things, and oddly enough, the brain, like neurology in school, was like my favorite anatomical area. So it's not hard for me to like understand these things, but also when it's your own child, you have that emotional component to it. So she said in 2 to 3 weeks after that ultrasound that I had the previous Friday, she said I needed to get looked at. I needed to get a second opinion from a maternal fetal medicine specialist or a perinatologist. So she said next week, I'm going to put in the referral for this MFM that's about an hour away because there's none in our town. And she said, I'm going to put in a referral for that, and they'll call you and you can get scheduled for next week. So she said they'll need to measure and look at the ventricles again and look at other parts of the brain to see if there's something that's causing this. And she said most commonly this resolves on its own. There's no secondary issue or like serious cause to ventricles being enlarged, and that's also called ventriculomegaly. She said most commonly it resolves on its own. I don't want you guys to worry too much, but it does warrant another look and a second opinion. It's not something that you can just say whatever, we're just going to put it to the side. It's serious enough that you need to get it looked at fairly quickly. I actually ended up calling her back because Mark thought of more questions that he wanted to ask her, and so we wanted to know what his ventricles were measuring at the anatomy scan, because that's another thing she said. She said everything looked fine at 20 weeks when you had your anatomy scan, and so that's a good sign because this is showing up now in the third trimester, and it wasn't there at 20 weeks, so it could be a passing thing. So at 20 weeks, his ventricle measurement was 7.7 millimeters, which is well below the 10 millimeter cutoff. And so between 20 weeks and 9 weeks later, they grew to 10.1 and 13. She said his head to belly circumference, or head to belly ratio, looked fine. She said his femur length was a little short at 7th percentile, so it wasn't too small percentile wise, but it was significantly smaller in percentile in comparison to his head and belly. So she said they'll probably look at that too at the MFM. So of course, what do you do after you get off the phone with your doctor and she tells you that something's wrong with your baby? You start getting on the internet and searching, and let me tell you, if this is you, I know it's very, very hard to not do, but try not to do it very much. Like, give yourself a span of time where, you know, you can search to try to maybe understand better what your doctor is talking about. But then once you start reading things that start freaking you out or instill fear in you or make you think worst case scenario, you need to stop. Despite getting this news and feeling jarred about it at first, I did realize that, like, okay, I have a sense of peace about this, like a peace that can only come from God, but I would sometimes sabotage that peace when I would get on the internet and search. That's my best advice, is to try not to give into that. So the next day, the MFM office calls me and we get me scheduled for the following Tuesday, so like less than a week later. So we go there. The sonographer was very kind. She, you know, when you go to an MFM, it's not necessarily like better imaging from what I understand and from what I could observe, but I think the sonographer is probably more skilled and they are more detailed in how they look at things. She measured the ventricles and measured everything else, you know, the femur and all of that stuff. And then we went to another room to talk with the perinatologist. He was very kind, had a very nice bedside manner. He was very soft-spoken and explained things very well, you know, like in layman's terms, you know, very easy, like we could easily understand what he was telling us. He used silence, like paused really well to like allow us to have time to think and ask questions. I don't know, I just really appreciated his demeanor. Sometimes, you know, when you go to the doctor, you can feel rushed, but he definitely, like, he made it feel like we had all the time in the world with him. The doctor, the perinatologist, told us that baby boy's ventricles are still enlarged. They're basically the same. They haven't really enlarged. They're 11 millimeters and 13.4 millimeters, so basically the same. But I guess he wasn't surprised that they're basically the same, because he said it's a very slow process for lateral ventricles in the brain to enlarge if they're going to enlarge. So he said like 10 days time from my OB ultrasound to the MFM ultrasound isn't really enough time to see if they're going to enlarge. So he said we really need like 3 to 4 weeks to see any type of significant change. And so he said, I want to see you 2 more times in your pregnancy for another scan. So I'm going to have one at the end of October and then I guess sometime in November. So he said there's 3 possibilities as to why baby boy has ventriculomegaly. The first one could be Down syndrome. It's unlikely that it's that, though. It's unlikely to be a chromosomal issue because, again, we didn't see anything wrong at 20 weeks. And he said normally that's when like Down syndrome would show up on an ultrasound. The other 2 possibilities are that there is a narrowing or a blockage of the ventricles and they can't drain properly. So he said that the ventricles, you know, they're lateral, so either side of the brain, and they're separate and they flow down, and at some point, not sure where, but they meet and they drain and they transport the cerebral spinal fluid. So at some point, and one is they're asymmetrical, which from our reading online, that is something good that has come of going online. We have learned that asymmetrical ventriculomegaly has a better prognosis than symmetrical ventriculomegaly or VM. That's easier to say. So it could be that maybe one side is blocked and just isn't draining properly, or there's like a narrowing, kind of like if you think of heart arteries, you know, when you have a narrowing like calcification or something, you know, you have a narrowing of the arteries. And then the third possibility is that it could be caused by brain anomalies that are too small to see on ultrasound, and they could only be picked up after birth on MRI. Now, I have also read that you can get a fetal MRI when you're pregnant. So they can put, you know, you and your belly through the MRI machine and get an MRI of your baby's brain. He didn't mention that. That is something that I probably will ask at our next appointment. If it's the second option, I'm not really sure. I guess it would depend on the brain anomaly if it's number 3. But if it's number 2, it's a fairly straightforward fix if the ventricles are continuing to enlarge and if there's like pressure on the brain or hydrocephaly. Basically the solution is to place a shunt, which is something that opens up the, the ventricles or where they're draining. Kind of like, I guess the best way to, a stent in the heart, like in the heart arteries, would be kind of the equivalent of a shunt. So basically a shunt allows the cerebral spinal fluid to drain properly, and that would just be put in and probably would remain for life, because again, it would be like another surgery to go and take it out if he would not need it anymore. So it would probably just put it in, it would stay there permanently, and it would allow his CSF to drain and everything would be great. Now it would entail surgery as a newborn or an infant, which, kind of sounds scary, but again, it's fairly straightforward, and chances are it is that, or something along those lines, and not a genetic or chromosomal abnormality. We also talked about place of delivery, because I guess, I was wondering that, like, okay, the fact that he has an issue, will that affect if I deliver here in town, which, it's a small town hospital. It's good, but it's not like, like one that would be in a larger city. So he said it'll kind of depend on if the pediatric team in town, like at our hospital, would feel equipped to handle him, or if they wouldn't, then I would need to go someplace else that would have like a higher pediatric team, and maybe like a higher NICU and pediatric neurosurgery and all of that kind of stuff, if that's going to be needed. So it just kind of depends, but I can still have a VBAC, my planned, unmedicated VBAC again, as long as his head is not too big, which it is not. It's a normal size. So, it's not like a super high percentile. And so I won't need to have a C-section just because he has this brain issue. So that's good. So I can just go ahead with my birth plans. I guess we're still in limbo at this point because like we didn't really get any answers necessarily. We got more clarity, I guess, but not any firm answers because we just don't know yet if the ventricles are going to continue to enlarge or if they're going to resolve or if they're going to stay the same. I mean, that's the thing. They could stay the same, they could get worse, or they could get better. I mean, it could really go any which way. And as far as like prognosis, outcome, all of that, I mean, if he has Down syndrome or a brain anomaly or whatever it is, he's still our baby. We still love him, and we're going to give him the best life possible. Just as we've always planned. This doesn't change anything. That's basically the update. I do have a regular OB growth ultrasound next week. I think it's in a week, on the 11th. So I will get another look at baby before my MFM appointment. So I am assuming that the sonographer will measure the ventricles. That'll be 2 weeks out from the previous ultrasound, and then the next MFM ultrasound will be 2 weeks after that. So, maybe we will see something at that point. I don't know. It's just kind of a big wait and see game. But the great thing about all this is that we have a ton of people praying for us. My mother-in-law has a very big prayer network, and she said that we probably have like 500 people praying for him, which is just incredible. Plus my family and friends and people from Instagram, and now you guys know. It's just incredible, the support. I definitely feel at peace, and I feel at peace with, what God has planned for our baby boy, and that he's going to bring good out of this no matter what the outcome is. We are praying for complete healing for him. It does sound scary, like ventriculomegaly, like anything with a megaly at the end of it just sounds scary. It's medical terminology that sounds scary. But I know things could be worse. I know a lot of parents and babies have it worse. So, you know, that is something to be thankful for, and just thankful that we're covered in prayer too. I mean, that's like the most important thing, really, is that there's people praying. And so I would ask you guys to do the same, and I really, really appreciate that in advance. Thank you so much. This is my third pregnancy, and everything has been so great. You know, I haven't had gestational diabetes, I haven't had preeclampsia or high blood pressure, or you guys, I haven't even had an issue with swelling. I've had like a handful of instances, isolated instances of swelling in pregnancy over my 3 pregnancies. Like even that, like nothing, no complications. I'm just very grateful, and no complications with baby. So hopefully this is a passing thing, or it is something that can be resolved, like with a shunt or something. And, you know, it's not going to cause, I mean, the only way this would cause brain damage is if it got to the point of hydrocephaly and there started to be pressure on the brain, and, you know, that could cause, you know, you cut off oxygen to the brain and all of that. I think if it would get to that point while I'm still pregnant, there's nothing you can do in utero. They don't do surgery on babies with this problem. So I guess if it would get to that point of being really, really bad, I'd probably just like get induced or have a C-section. I don't know, but I would deliver the baby, and I would deliver early so that he can get the care that he needs before any damage can be done. So I am being closely monitored. I have 2 more scans with the MFM, and I think 2 or 3 more. Oh yeah, I definitely have 2 more scans with my OB, a 3rd one in December if I go over my due date. But, you know, I've only gone like 1 day over my due date. So, and otherwise baby is really, really I mean, he's a healthy baby. He just has enlarged ventricles. That's it. I've been wanting to share his name, but I think I'm just gonna try to wait. But both his first and his middle name mean gift of God. And like, that already really fit him, because he's just a total gift. Like, we didn't even ask for him, and God, you know, blessed us with him. And now with all of this stuff going on, I mean, it's almost like God is saying, like, yes, he truly is a gift to you. And, you know, we had his name picked out before we knew about this ventriculomegaly. So I can't wait to share his name with you. It's just so perfect and fitting for him. It's a great name. The first name has been on our list for quite a while, and Gus was almost named that, and then Augustine occurred to me, and we were like, yep, Augustine is going to be his name if he's a boy. And so then we were like, okay, then this name is going to be if we have a 3rd boy. And it's like, I mean, God knew that this all was going to happen. So it's almost like, now looking back, I feel like he really did inspire me to think of the name Augustine for Gus, because he knew we needed this name for this 3rd boy. So that's pretty cool. I love that. All right. Thank you guys so much again for your support and your prayers and comments if you leave them. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, I'm doing well. I am feeling a lot more tired these days. I feel energetic like sitting here and talking, but moving around and doing physical things is getting more strenuous. My belly sometimes feels like a bowling ball. So I am wearing a belly band sometimes, like if I know I'm going to be on my feet a lot, like grocery shopping. And if I am on my feet a lot, like yesterday after grocery shopping, that was like the big thing of the day. And I came home, put the kids down for a nap, and then I took a nap. Yeah, there's really nothing much to report on myself. I've gained 34 pounds. That's the most I've ever gained at this point in pregnancy. So I have 2 months to go, so I don't know. I stepped on the scale last night and I'm like, oh, I've never weighed this much. Or maybe I weighed this much at the very end of my other pregnancies, or at least Gus's, but I'm not done yet. So I don't know. I'm trying to keep up with the boys and keep the house in order and kind of garden. I've really been neglecting it lately. That's why there hasn't been any like garden footage on the channel, because I have canning projects I want to do, like applesauce and tomato sauce. I have nesting projects that I want to do. I still need to finish setting up getting stuff for the bassinets. I need to organize the nursery closet. Like, I just have so much to do, and I only have 2 months. Plus, I want to be all decorated for Christmas and have Christmas gifts bought because my due date's at the beginning of December. And like, am I going to be running around doing Christmas shopping newly postpartum? Probably not. So I've got to like think about Christmas now and get Christmas prepped and ready. So, oh, it's crazy, but very, very grateful. Thank you guys so much. I really am ending the video now. So again, if you're not subscribed, please do so. I will continue to update you guys about baby boy number 3 and how things go with his ventricles. We will know more maybe by next week, but definitely by the end of October. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.